Every YouTuber's dream would be to gather millions of subscribers and tons of fans. What if this is a shortcut to success? However, the only catch is that you have to play with your life on the line. Would you rather play it safe, or do you want to play this game of death? At the start of a video presentation, this guy named JaxPro had a wonderful idea of creating a game inspired by an octopus. He called it the Octo Game, where 8 independent games would be played by numerous players until one came out victorious. When the games officially started, a group of 15 randomly selected social media influencers were all called. Carrie, this lovely girl, was one of the aspiring influencers, and she was thrilled to be a part of a game hosted by the great YouTuber JaxPro himself. All the other guests were enjoying themselves. In front of them were sets of cameras and a TV, where JaxPro's video flashed to announce the mechanics of the games. And when the news of a grand prize, everyone was ecstatic and overjoyed. The first game was entitled Simon Says, a children's game that everyone believed was easy to do. Once everything was set, they were off to officially start the first game. At first, everything was going as planned, until one of them made the grave mistake of not following what Simon said. That player was saddened, thinking he had missed his chance with the grand prize. But unexpectedly, the prize he had to pay for losing was his own life. Everyone was horrified by what they had witnessed, and fear was slowly clouding their once joyful smiles. When one tried to escape, she was also eliminated right before the others. The remaining players realized they were at the mercy of the guard dogs. So, to save themselves, they had no choice but to keep on playing the game. As the game continued, the difficulty of every task increased, and slowly, the other players met their end. When the game was finally over, leaving 8 restless and terrified players, JaxPro congratulated the remaining survivors like the experience was a ton of fun. One by one, all the remaining players neared the camera as ordered by JaxPro. For their safety, they had to follow him at all cost. Afterward, one of the guards delivered the footage of the game. JaxPro personally received this, and he was overly thrilled. He happily searched for his lover but pitied her for being under the control of her fans. He promised that after everything was over, they would go far away and start a new life away from the influence of their fans. Moments later, the remaining players were escorted to a room where they all changed into their uniforms. As expected, all were still in shock from the events. Others were remorseful while some were angry. To calm themselves, they tried to cheer up one another to reduce stress, but some were still pessimistic about their situation. But this group also has some cunning foxes with them. The old fox, Walter, wanted to team up with the younger one, and he planned to use the kind-spirited ladies to their advantage. Despite the younger one not wanting to make friends, he needed to have an ally to survive. Thus, the two joined forces, which alerted the wise girls on the other side. The second game finally started, and it was hopscotch. The rules were simple. If they moved once the lights were red, then they were out. When the first one would get eliminated, that would signify the end of the game. The players were all nervous, but they had to stay strong to overcome this problem. First off was a Jay, and he. So far he was doing great. But once the lights turned red, Steven, one of the cunning foxes, whistled, which was a question to Walter. Nevertheless, the game went on smoothly, and now it was Jess, the fit guru, turn. Sure enough, Steven whistled once again when the light turned red. Bothered about what the younger fox was up to, Walter exchanged numbers with Carrie. And soon, it was Sunny, the preschool teacher's turn. It all started well when she suddenly lost her balance once the lights turned red. Like magic, Steven whistled in the same tone as when the lights changed colors. This made Sunny lose the game, inflicting her teammates with grief as they watch her get eliminated. Carrie tried to step in, but she was injured because of that. In the end, all were escorted back to their waiting room. Walter approached the disheartened girls, offering his help to take down the bad Steven. Of course, Maxine was skeptical of the old man's offer, but because of what happened, Carrie agreed. On the other hand, the bewitching Ruth was at her games, and was now on a hunt for a strong man to escalate her chances of winning. But the first one bluntly declined her provocations, which was to her dismay. The other ladies laughed at her funny antics as they saw her make a move on Steven next. But little did this Miss Temptress know, she was at a disadvantage. Steven exploded due to her nagging, which caused Ruth to get injured. Afterward, Steven declared his hostility and warned all of them to never approach him ever again. The others attended Ruth's wounds, and the lady was fuming red because of the attack. But because of this, Carrie and Maxine formed a new alliance with AJ. However, they could not relax for long because the third game was about to begin. Meanwhile, the little lover was busy texting the players' relatives to assure them that everything was fine. JaxPro approached his little temptress, excited for his grant retirement and the chance for them to escape. But it seemed the little lover had other plans up her sleeve. The third game was called the obstacle course, but there is a bonus to this game. The person who makes it out in under 60 seconds gets to go home. Tempted, Jess volunteered immediately despite Ruth questioning her judgments. Little did she know, she had to play tag with the fearful guard dog and still make it on time. Seeing her run for her life, the remaining players were on their knees as they anticipate what would happen to Jess. In the end, Jess got out and was joyful about her achievements, but all were stunned when the guards eliminated her, saying she had gone over the time limit. Despite the probability of making it out alive, Carrie leaped and presented to go next. But before the game could even start, Carrie burst into tears. She shared her life outside before all this game content started, and she poured out all her emotions, winning the hearts of the guard dogs. She did not participate in the game and they were all escorted to the next. Back in the players' room, one of the guards was acting suspiciously, causing a conflict between the two. Meanwhile, the little lover was acting suspiciously around Jax Pro. It turned out, she had made plans with one of the guards and it seemed they were after her boyfriend. That evening, AJ approached Carrie to look for a way out. But the guard dog stood on his ground and when AJ tried to check, he suddenly moved. Both of them were afraid, so they backed down on their plans in the end. And soon, the fourth game began. It was musical chair. And this time, one lucky winner would get a prize. With the announcement that the first one out would be eliminated, everyone gave their all. After the heated competition, AJ was the first to get eliminated, which made Carrie anxious. As he was escorted out, all the remaining players continued, one after the other. Everyone was getting eliminated until it was down to 2. When it was Carrie's turn to be escorted away, she was troubled when she saw the other eliminated players. It turned out the one who would officially get eliminated would be the loser between Steven and Ruth. The two battled it out, with Steven not showing any mercy at all. Walter proposed for them to join forces and end Steven's supremacy, to which they all agreed. Once the battle was done, all the remaining players gathered in silence before them. However, Ruth was still alive. And as a bonus, Jax Pro hired her to be one of the guards which she loved the most. In their room, all were in total disarray with Steven distrusting Walter and the others having mixed emotions about the happenings. Shortly after, Ruth arrived and ordered them to prepare. The fifth game was hide and seek and all had under a minute to hide. Once the time was up, the guard dog was on the hunt for the hidden players. He was hot on Carrie's tail but fortunately, he looked somewhere else. He was now after Steven, so Carrie used this opportunity to escape. Steven immediately ran away once he was discovered and hid with Maxine and Walter. On the other hand, Carrie was still making her way out when she was discovered by a guard. By the time the guard dog arrived in the room, Walter had baited Maxine. The others kept themselves hidden as the guard dog attacked her. At the same time, Carrie was spared by the guards, but when she heard Maxine scream, she ran to her rescue. Unfortunately, she was too late. That evening, Jax Pro was having the time of his life with his little lover, but they were interrupted when Ruth arrived and their closeness bothers her. But she did not mind, seeing her plans were about to unravel. Meanwhile, the remaining players were totally at a loss and were starting to point fingers at one another. Carrie, the sweet girl, was vulnerable in this state. Inside his house, it also seemed Jax Pro knew about her little lover's plans and he ordered Ruth to end the accomplice. The sixth game was Tetherball. It was a battle between two players. AJ and Walter were off first and after a heated battle, AJ came out victorious. The second round was between Steven and Carrie. As the game started, Carrie did not participate and allowed Steven to win. She had planned this carefully and promised to give her all to defeat Walter instead. And as planned, she won against Walter by a landslide. As payment for all the trouble he caused, he was equally dealt with by his punishment. After witnessing the horrifying events, it was down to AJ and Carrie, who were now comforting one another. They were up against Steven, and they planned to win. On the night of the seventh game, the little lover had sailed her plans. But as Jax Pro almost took the deadly drink, he smelt something was off. To prove his judgment, he forced her to drink it, but once she evaded, he knew this was the end for them. The two played catch, with the little lover fearing for her life. But in the end, she was eliminated by Ruth herself. When Jax Pro saw this, he was in total shock and demanded Ruth to give him the gun. But he just wanted to make sure his little lover was gone and put the blame on her once the games go live. Jax Pro was lost on what his next plans would be, but with Ruth's temptations, they made the grand plan of running away together instead. And soon, the seventh game has begun. It was Hangman, and the one who gets the phrase right would pass to the next stage. At the beginning of the game, Steven was bombing every choice he made. It seemed this would be an easy victory for AJ and Carrie. But there was a sudden change in events, and unexpectedly, Steven came out victorious. Carrie was now getting emotional about what might be coming for them. But with a reassuring smile, AJ said he would find a way. It turned out he planned to take the fall so Carrie would be saved. This, however, saddened Carrie and he tried to object. And after a long wait, AJ finally met his end. From a group of 15 players, it was now down to Steven and Carrie, and they were off to the greatest showdown. Having enough of the guilt, Carrie lashed out at Steven, wishing he was the one eliminated instead of the others. However, this angered Steven and he yelled at her to wake up. All she could do was tremble in fear and cry. In the morning, Jax Pro called the guard dog and scolded him about the sixth game's incident. But as he continued with his nagging, he discovered the other had the same tattoo as him. Seeing this as an opportunity to get along with his idol, the guard dog shared his life story. He praised Jax Pro and said how he gave him a sense of purpose. But instead of getting along, Jax Pro found his obsession rather unnecessary. With his final call to Ruth, the guard dog was eliminated. And so, the day has finally arrived for the final game. It was the classic capture the flag and the first one to get it would win it all. Once it started, Steven and Carrie ran for their lives. Carrie was the first to touch the flag, but Steven tackled her, forcing her to let go. And like slow motion, Carrie lost hold of her chance of survival. But all hope was not lost, for in the end, what Steven captured was a false flag. Carrie saw the real one and immediately went after it. And once she got a hold of the real one, Steven was stunned to realize his end. With Ruth's satisfied grin, she bid farewell to her mortal enemy, and finally, Stephen was eliminated. Carrie did not have time to react because the other guard came running to her side and injected her with sedative. And slowly, Carrie fell into a deep slumber. When she came to, she discovered she was inside an unfamiliar house. Jack Sparrow has left and abided by his promises, but Carrie was no longer interested in the prize. From upstairs, the mysterious guard arrived, which scared Carrie so gravely. But he came in peace and stated she was now free. He even disclosed himself as one of her fans, and he left her be. Panicking, Carrie immediately contacted the police and told them the whole truth. 3 months had passed and slowly Carrie was making it to the big audience. But in her heart, she had lost her true calling. But when she received an email containing the video of the one who caused all her miseries, she knew this was not the end of the games.